In 2010, my parents told me I would be signing up for the PAM Worship and Music Conference in Montreat. My dad was serving on the planning team, and he just knew we would love it. I pitched a fit only a 14-year-old can pitch. You see, I knew Montreat well, but not as a conferee. Long story short, I lost the battle and was begrudgingly signed up for the 2010 Worship and Music Conference. Since 2010, I have in some way been part of each Worship and Music Conference. I love watching how PAM brings all of these different aspects of the church into one place. PAM has brought music and worship and lessons and art and dancing and play together for 50 years. And people. PAM brings people together. I'm so passionate about PAM because of the people PAM has brought into my life. People like Bruce, my first choir director at Worship and Music, whose stories I can still hear. People like Ellen, who I sang with in the senior high choir for years. People like Adam, who made me laugh at an early morning breakfast in the inn. People like Mark, who lead with strength and grace. People like Clara and Millie, who jumped right into their first PAM Worship and Music Conference. People like Dana, my mom, and Kelly, who all previously served as conference secretary, the role I now serve. These people of all ages and from all places are what make PAM the great organization that it has been for the past 50 years and will continue to be for many, many more. Thank you.
Hello and greetings. We are glad you have joined us for this webinar, Thankful Hearts and Voices Raise, Conversations about PAM's Next 50 Years. I am Janet Lohman, and I am the co-chair of the 50th Anniversary Capital Campaign. It was launched in June 2019, and our plans were to celebrate its success in June at Montreat. However, in March, we decided to postpone the campaign as our nation was forced to concede to the coronavirus. So you might ask, why resume the campaign now in the midst of a pandemic, hurricanes on 2 coasts, fires in the West, floods in the East, and political and social unrest throughout the United States? PAM's affirmation is this: in the midst of chaos, God's people seek serenity, hope, and joy in believing. We fervently believe in the power of Christ's church to heal, protect, and provide for her people through the beauty of music, worship, and the arts. The gifts of grace and faith are nurtured in these acts of devotion as God continues to heal through the creative gifts given to his people. The human need for inspiration is critical now, more than ever. The Presbyterian Association of Musicians has dedicated its first 50 years to building relationships through collaborative worship experiences and education. Today, we look forward to sharing with you our mission goals for the next 50 years.
Hi, I'm Dave Vandermeer, immediate past president of PAM and the other co-chair of the 50th anniversary campaign. As Janet noted, our initial plans were to celebrate our 50th anniversary last summer at Montreat. However, as much as we would have loved honoring the many accomplishments of PAM over the last 50 years, I'm even more excited to talk about what PAM can offer to its members and to the church in the next 50 years. You may be aware that PAM has a new mission statement. The Presbyterian Association of Musicians believes that formative and collaborative experiences with God and neighbor nurture relationships and create community. PAM is all about experiences with God and neighbor. We try to create and to help all of you create experiences with God through inspirational, transformational, and authentic worship, whether these take place in person, in large group settings at Montreat, or some other conference venue, or virtually, as we did in our conference last summer. All of our in-person and online offerings are intended to give you, as worship planners, musicians, liturgy writers, educators, and artists, the tools and ideas to help you to create experiences in your home churches that nurture relationships with God and neighbor and create real community. We believe we have been doing this throughout the last 50 years, but more importantly, we are committed to continue this work for the next 50 years and beyond. Our Thankful Hearts and Voices Raised campaign will go on, even in the midst of a life-changing pandemic, a contentious political campaign, and a climate of personal and societal re-examination of the ways we live with each other. This is the perfect time, a crucial time, for the church to offer the direction, the hope, the beauty, and the relationships that can and do support all of God's creation. The format of today's webinar will include Janet and I asking questions of Eric and Kelly. We invite you to write any of your questions in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Near the end of the webinar, we will address your questions. I would like to introduce our panelists for today's webinar, Eric Wall, the current president of PAM, and Kelly Abraham, PAM's executive director. Welcome. Eric, what is PAM and what has PAM been doing for the last 50 years?
Thanks, Dave, and good morning, everybody. We're glad you're with us. It's good to be together. My immediate reaction to a question like, what is PAM, is actually to tweak the question a little bit. Because what's often happened to me, and probably has happened to many of you, is you are in some kind of a conversation, and we know that it means Presbyterian Association of Musicians, but if you talk to somebody who doesn't know that, and you make a casual reference to PAM, very often you get some kind of response, PAM, who is that? And so I kind of like to think of the question as, who is PAM? Because I really love it that our name, our colloquial name of the organization is actually a real person's name, because it reflects that this organization is you and me and us and all the people who came before and all the people who will come after that we don't even know. So who is PAM, and what has PAM been doing all these 50 years? All kinds of things. I would say first and foremost, we've been gathering, and as Dave just said, in all kinds of ways that include virtual now, but we've been gathering in places like Albuquerque and Wilmington and Mo Ranch and particularly in Montreat for the past 50 years. People were gathering in Montreat, North Carolina, even before PAM came into being. That's how PAM came into being. So we've gathered in large national settings, we've gathered in regional settings, we've gathered in local settings thanks to events that PAM has helped to sponsor through seed grant money and make possible. And in all of those places, when we gather, we are offering praise and prayer and worship, we are making music together, we are rekindling friendships and forming new ones. In those gatherings, as I say, we're making music. We are the Presbyterian Association of Musicians, and all of us can probably recall, if we've been to any of these PAM events, just the sheer impact of that music making on our own life and on our vocation. We make music at these gatherings. We make music throughout the year because of the music we do whenever we're together. We make music from the hymns that are published in Call to Worship. We make music from the anthems that are published in the PAM Anthem series. We also, in the past 50 years, have been teaching and learning in PAM. At our conferences and gatherings, we're teaching and learning. In our own churches, at our own seminaries, and our own settings, we're teaching and learning and drawing on those resources with which PAM has equipped us. We also are teaching and resourcing in these kinds of resources, the Book of Common Worship, our Presbyterian hymnal, Glory to God. These are resources that PAM at its conferences has helped to workshop, to prepare, to cull, to refine, to hone, and to offer to the church. We teach and learn in formats like this, webinars and town halls. We teach by offering scholarships to people who might not otherwise be able to afford to come to our conferences, so that the wondrous things that we do are available to as many people as we can offer them to. We have also, in the past 50 years, to enable these things to happen, we have been organizing. We've got an amazing board, and our PAM board always comes from these amazing members within the community. We've had great executive directors in Alan Barthel and Bill McConnell, and now in Kelly Abraham. So we have created structures and organizations and ways of shepherding our life over these generations. We've also been sharing. Dave just read to you the recently adopted revised mission statement, and sharing, collaborating, partnering. These are at the heart of everything PAM stands for and is about. PAM exists because of collaboration, because of the shared ministry, the shared vocational call between musicians and pastors and educators and singers and ringers and worship committee members and anybody in the church, anybody in a seminary, anybody who loves the worship of God and the music that infuses it. And the last thing I would say is, what have we been doing for 50 years? In all of this, we've been nurturing. We ourselves have been nurtured in prayer and in music. But PAM is more than just a network of musicians. It is a congregation. It is a family. How often are we nourished by an email or a note, a Zoom call with our colleagues? How often are we cheered by the annual summer conference, that yearly reunion, if we're able to be at it? How often are we how many of us have had the experience of being brought into PAM as a new family member, as a new colleague, as a new member of this congregation? PAM has meant shared stories and shared experiences, advice, perspective, checking in with people. Even when we're gathered in our own churches or recording worship in these days or doing worship over Zoom in these days, in all those ways, I think we as PAM members are still doing what we've been doing for 50 years. We're still gathered. The music we make wherever we are is echoing some music that we might have made at a PAM conference or gathering or learned in a PAM resource. How often have we heard that echo when we're making that music? How often have we been teaching in Sunday school or leading a rehearsal, and something we learned at a Montreat event or read in a PAM publication found its way into what we were trying to teach? And all this we've been doing for 50 years, and even more than 50 years, because of those visionaries who came before us, who gathered before PAM even existed. And in that gathering, in the actual being together as musicians, they imagined the possibility of this community of musicians in their conversations, in their commitments, in their imagination, in their energy, in their love. They said, let there be PAM, and it has been very good.
Music has been an important part of my life for as long as I can remember. One of my fondest memories of my dad was when he used to sing the Lord's Prayer to me when he tucked me into bed. My first musical instrument was a small electric toy organ. I can remember sitting on the floor in our dining room with the organ perched on a cardboard box, and I played through all the songs in the accompanying book over and over and over again. My parents decided it was time to purchase a real piano. I always sang in the school and church choirs. I was selected to sing in a small ensemble in junior high. We were called the Treble Clefs, and I can still see our Oxford blue blouses with navy treble clefs sewn on the front pocket. My challenge came when they didn't want me to wear my glasses to sing on TV because of the glare it might cause. A favorite part of my job as a church educator was our Monday morning staff meetings with the pastors, church musician, youth director, and myself. Together, we would creatively and meticulously plan several weeks and seasons of worship services. I came to value how meaningful and important it was that everything we did during worship needed to all fit together to complement and enhance our thanks and praise in order to give God our very best. As an educator, I can teach the words of the Lord's Prayer and tell the stories of Jesus. But in order to engage the entire person both sides of the brain. Those additional elements of music and the visuals of liturgical art help shape, form, and nurture the whole self. This is what formative and collaborative worship is all about. This is what this organization supports in every way, from curating resources to resourcing those who do church. This is what PAM is all about. This is why I support this organization with my whole heart, along with my gifts of time and treasure.
Kelly, 2020 has certainly been a challenging year. What did PAM do in 2020?
First, thank you all for being here, and it's what a joy to be with you. Thanks for taking time out of your day. Yes, Janet, 2020 continues to be a challenging year every day for all of us. And in spite of that, I think the one thing about PAM is, and all of us, is you don't sit still. You have to keep moving on and moving forward. So there's quite a few things we did this year. One was we began town hall forums to address current issues facing church leadership. Our town hall forums replaced the webinar series and are free to all, not just members, to all. We started this back in March when it became clear or unclear where we were moving. And we wanted to create a space for people to just be in community with one another, to lament, to ask questions, to share. And it worked well enough that we felt like this is important. And we don't know when this pandemic is going to end. So we will be doing these town hall forums for at least the next 12 months. What we've decided to do is to take these town hall forums and connect them with PAM's journal, Call to Worship, and lift up the thematic issues. We have wonderful people writing these articles every single issue, and we are going to feature authors beginning next month with Ron Byers, and have a conversation to lift up these issues and then take questions from the viewers. We're also going to take a little time on the front end to just let you have a space to be in community with one another and just be together. The second thing we did was we created a task force in May, and we issued the Church Music and COVID-19, a response and a guide for churches and church musicians. This was in response to so many of you calling and saying, what do we do? How do we lead in worship? And so this was our guide and our stance to be a support to you to be able to work with your churches and lead in worship. The biggest thing I think we did this year was to take an annual worship and music conference at Montreat and convert it to an online event. And it was no small feat, and it didn't happen alone. It happened with lots and lots of people and lots of help. We ended up having 985 people registered, and I can't say enough about how grateful I am to be a part of an organization that, instead of saying, no, we just can't do this year, to be able to say, yes, we have to do this year. We have to be a support to our churches, to our denomination, to our members. And it was such an experience, and it is still such a gift to give. It's still available, and we hope people are using it as a resource. I think for us, and I know some of you have heard me say this before, if we can't help you when you need it, we shouldn't be here. And I think the one thing PAM can say now is, we're here when you need us, and we're not going away. Again, and another thing we've done is, and we're living into right now, is we're seeing this sort of what the new normal is. And we're working to create the first of 12 PAM regions. I don't know what travel is going to look like. I don't know what conferences are going to look like. What I do know is that churches and members are still going to need resources and communities. And having one event in Montreat, albeit wonderful, doesn't meet the needs of all of our members, and we need to do better. And so we will be creating these regions to create spaces so that folks in their regions can determine what their needs are, and we can be supportive to those needs. as recent as last month, we created a task force from the PAM membership to identify ways PAM can amplify contributions to sacred music from people of color. These may include, but not be limited to, curated resources, performances, commissions, and gatherings. And so we look forward to living into this task force and to hearing some suggestions at our February board meeting. So clearly, we've not sat idle. We're charging forward to meet the ever-changing needs of members and churches for years to come, and we're excited.
Eric, what are PAM's goals for the future? Say in the next 3 to 5 years, the next 50 years. How is PAM being innovative?
That's a great question. I think that PAM, like the church, can only have goals because it has a charge. And PAM's charge in everything is to follow Jesus Christ and to be a faithful steward of our gifts, of the callings to ministry and music, and to give ourselves to the church's worship. One of the great friends of our organization is Kim Long, and I've quoted Kim so much that she should probably start asking for royalty checks, but I'm going to quote her again. One of my favorite phrases that I've heard her say and read in her writing is that our calling as worship leaders is to evoke the people's prayer. And I just love that phrase. And in all of our goals, which represent our charge, that's our work, to evoke the people's prayer in song and other parts of liturgy and everything that we're doing. And that means that we have goals that are liturgical and musical and structural and financial and personal, and they're all interconnected. It's like rolling dice. You roll the die, and whatever side comes up, all the other sides are still connected. Everything moves together and everything is connected, and that's kind of the way our PAM goals are. But I would say the broad ways I think about our goals are openness, curiosity, hospitality, artistry, faithfulness, and generosity. Our goals are to work for justice. Our goals are to be anti-racist. Our goals are to hear the voices of people who may have been silenced, as the brief statement of faith says. Our goal is for the church's song to help us hear and share each other's voices. What does it look like specifically? We don't want to just strengthen our gatherings, in particular our summer conference, but we want to make them ever richer. We want to strengthen them because gathering is important. And because in our gatherings, Pam is not just rehearsing music, Pam is rehearsing its life in Christ for the sake of the world. And so strengthening our gatherings, strengthening our summer conference looks like these things: increasing our scholarships that we can offer so we can invite more people. It's harder and harder for people to get to conferences in these days. We want to be able to equip them in better ways. It looks like the possibilities of endowing faculty positions. I would lose count quickly of the number of these amazing faculty members who have just whose knowledge is just washed over us whenever we're to get with them. Ways to endow these positions to help ensure that we will keep drawing buckets from that well. It also looks like enabling and imagining new streaming and hybrid possibilities, as Kelly was saying, that we learned so much about this past summer, so that people long way away from the conference can still partake in its riches. We want to create a fuller PAM community so that we know each other better, so that we can resource each other better, so that we can support each other better. And this looks like our new initiatives creating PAM regions. Some of that is already underway in some conversations. It's really very exciting. It looks like these town halls that Kelly was describing, which we find are evolving from simple information sessions to true gatherings, the places where we can really check in and claim our community in some new ways. We also want PAM to be an organization that reaches more than ever before for inclusivity, that works to be anti-racist, that works to cast a wide net, to draw a wider circle and build a bigger table. What does this look like? You heard Kelly describe some of the board's new initiatives, trying to make wider circles and bigger tables that amplify the voices that we don't always hear, or that we have turned away from. We want to draw wider circles and build bigger tables in the range of our faculty. We want to draw wider circles and build bigger tables among our conferees. We want to draw wider circles and build bigger tables of accessibility and hospitality, how we make things available to people, how we transmit and how we record and how we welcome and invite. One of our newer projects in the past couple of years has been a different kind of conference in partnership with other seminaries and with Louisville, called Just Worship. And we've held it once in Decatur at Columbia, and then just last year here at Austin Seminary. And this has been a completely different kind of conference from our others, in which we really intentionally explore the relationship of justice and worship. What does justice look like within worship? And what does justice in the world look like when worship helps to focus us and send us into that work? Our goals also include wanting PAM to be, as you ask, innovative, imaginative, nimble. It was a giant pivot for us this past spring, for example, to take a conference that we're used to being online and swing it in the direction of that we're used to being in person, and swing it in the direction of being online. And thanks to an amazing cohort of volunteers and workers, lots of sleeves were rolled up, and we were able to do it. The joy of doing that is to be in an organization that's willing to make that kind of reach, that's willing to have that kind of flexibility, that's willing to have that kind of imagination, so that we can come together in a different space and to set us up for all kinds of possibilities for the future that we might never have stepped into, or that would have taken us a much longer time to step into. All that happens when we know we can be flexible, when we know we can imagine, when we know we can pivot and respond. And of course, we want PAM to be sustainable for the next 50 years, and the 50 years after that, and the 50 years after that. Not sustainable for its own sake, but sustainable for the sake of the world that God loves, and for the vocations of worship and music into which God keeps calling us. And we want PAM to be a body that's always growing and yet is always one. And I want to read, in that regard, one of my favorite It's a hymn I didn't know till Glory to God came out, and it's just one of my most favorite in the book. It's number 322. Somos uno en Cristo. Somos uno en Cristo, somos uno solo. Un solo Dios, un solo Señor, una sola fe, un solo amor, un solo bautismo, un solo espíritu, y ese es el consolador. We are one in Christ Jesus, all one body, all one spirit, all together. We share one God, one mighty Lord, one abiding faith, one binding love, one single baptism, one holy comforter, the Holy Spirit, uniting all.
Thankful Hearts and Voices Raise is the theme of the 50th anniversary campaign, and it perfectly describes my experience of PAM throughout my life. I willingly raise my voice today in gratitude to PAM for providing things like conferences like the Montreat conference that I attended as a young child, which was actually pre-PAM days, but also for the numbers of times I had the opportunity to attend as an adult and to even be a part of the faculty several times, and also to participate in the Mo Ranch conferences and also the Westminster conference. But PAM is so much more than just those wonderful conferences. PAM provides resources such as the new online town hall forums, as well as print resources like those related to COVID-19 and the copyright law, and shorter events like Just Worship that was held here in Austin not too long ago, and also providing opportunities to be in connection with others, such as the board's new initiative to divide the country into regions and provide some formative and collaborative experiences on the regional level, as well as to nurture relationships and create community. I'm honored to serve on the steering committee for the first of those regions that is looking at establishing one in the south central part of our country. PAM has provided mountaintop experiences for me time and time again through deeply inspiring worship, through opportunities to learn from theologians and musicians and artists and educators, and through fellowship with those who share a commitment to offer to God our very best praise. Please join me in furthering this crucial work by making a donation today to the 50th anniversary campaign. Help PAM to continue to make a difference as together we raise our thankful hearts and voices.
Hello again, Kelly. Why a capital campaign, and why now?
Why? Well, so the idea of this 50th anniversary capital campaign was actually conceived in 2016 when Bill McConnell was serving as PAM's executive director. 2020 has made clear that our church's need for PAM to be a resource. And while our annual Worship and Music Conference in Montreat is what got PAM started and frankly sustains the organization, members need more than that. We are very aware that continuing ed budgets are shrinking and conference costs are rising. Over and over again, speaking with people, the response I get is it's very expensive to attend a conference. And when we look at the costs of attending a worship and music conference, the registration fee isn't the cost. Ours are pretty competitive to any other event in our denomination. The cost is lodging, the cost is travel, the cost are meals, and those costs can be prohibitive. And so our hope is that this campaign will support more scholarships and funding to be able to bring people to this conference and not just cover registration, but be able to cover travel, lodging, and meals. And we're also hopeful, in addition to bringing people physically to the conference, that we will be able to get funding to broadcast the conference to those unable to attend in person. It's clear that is the direction we're going to be moving. And like I said earlier, I'm not sure there's any turning back. We also learned, not only in a time of a pandemic when people physically can't be together, we've got lots of folks who are physically not able to make it to Montreat. And what a gift it was to be able to broadcast this conference this year to people who cannot handle the hills of Montreat as lovely as they are, or who are unable to travel, or who don't have those budgets to be able to fly. So to be able to broadcast was a gift. Other reasons for the campaign: we're looking for funding to support these regions, some seed money to fund the programming and the community resources that they need. We want to make sure that we set these regions up to succeed, and we want to make sure that we do it in a way that keeps PAM solvent. The one thing we keep saying about the regions is we want to make sure we can provide the resources they need, not what we think they need. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know what somebody in Oklahoma needs, and I don't know what somebody in Wyoming or Washington needs. So the beauty is we're hopeful that we can support the regions in serving their needs. Additionally, scholarships. We are looking to do more scholarships, more funding, diversity scholarships, more racial ethnic minority scholarships, more funding for housing and travel. We were the wonderful, grateful recipients of a grant from St. Philip Presbyterian Church in Houston, Texas, for this past summer to be able to fund lodging, travel, and meal scholarships, as well as registration scholarships for minority churches. And it was so exciting. And we had funded all of the scholarships and we had used the entire grant. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. That doesn't mean the need is not there. The need is still there. And we want to make sure that we can continue to do that for years to come. The world is changing. Churches are changing. PAM has offered excellent programming and resources throughout the years. And we want to be sure we can get these resources into the hands of everybody who needs them.
Hi friends, Philip Schultz here, delighted to spend a few moments telling you why the Presbyterian Association of Musicians means so much to me. I think back to my first Montreat experience, the very first time the organ played in the opening worship service and everyone raised their voices together in song. I still get chills from that experience of everyone around me singing fervently and passionately. So many voices, so much sound, so much beauty. And from then on, I was captivated by the Montreat experience, whether it be sitting side by side pastors in lectures, or listening to amazing sermons, or in a handbell seminar, or just hanging out by the lake or at the Huckleberry. There are always wonderful people to engage with, to interact with, to learn from, to listen to be in community with. I think about my Montreat journey and my PAM experience as a very unique one in that I did start just as someone who came to be a part of the conferences, just to sing, just to have my spirit refreshed so I could go back to my congregations and help them to continue to expand our worship offerings and our musical offerings. But thanks to such generous people who not only shared with me, but who saw something in me, I've had the privilege to lead middler choirs and high school choirs and adult choirs at several of the PAM sponsored conferences. And it's always a thrill to see what each conference brings, the unique differences of each conferences, but the thing that unites them together is the commitment to serve our risen Lord through vital worship, through worship that reaches our hearts, that speaks to our minds, and that encourages us to go forth into the world in spirit and in truth to make the world a better place for all to live in. I am so grateful to the leadership of PAM for how they have endured this pandemic. They've remained relevant. PAM has remained vital, providing opportunities for us to continue to listen to each other, to learn from each other, and to have our spirits refreshed and restored and renewed so that we can continue to be the church, even in this very new and different age. So PAM, on the occasion of this 50th anniversary, I want to say congratulations. I want to say thank you for how you have helped this musician, this pastoral musician, to see his role more clearly, to be inspired and to be encouraged and to be given tools to go forth and do even more than I thought was possible in my situations and in the settings that I am a part of. So congratulations and thank you. And here's to the next 50 years of the Presbyterian Association of Musicians, continuing to inspire, to educate, to engage, and to spread the love of Christ in all the world. Be well, friends. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Congratulations again.
We encourage you now to ask any questions you may have by using the Q&A option on your Zoom screen.
Kelly, I have one. How much has Pam raised for the campaign thus far?
We have raised in pledges and in donations $265,000. So we're a little over a quarter of the way to our goal. I think the website says 260, and I can tell you 265 because we just had a generous pledge from a church. Good news.
And what's the average campaign gift?
The average campaign gift is about $2,200 to $2,300. And I will absolutely tell you that those pledges, those donations are pledges that are made over a 3-year period or a 5-year period. It's very common to have that. I can, and people are doing recurring donations. I can tell you right now that I'm making a recurring donation to the anniversary campaign once a month. And we can set that up through the website. I think we've got about 117 units of our giving are at this point. And that answers everything, I think.
So here's a question. Can you talk more about PAM's diversity, equity, and inclusion goals as a primarily white organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one of the things that that the board has, we had an extensive conversation about this in our August board meeting, is to, as we look at either in our resources, in the worship of our conferences, in the ways that as we plan worship, anytime we plan worship in any of our settings, let alone as an organization, we are naturally going to default or steer or go first to what we know, what we've been taught, what we have experience with, where we've come from, and what we know, as the question says exactly right, that PAM has been and is a primarily majority of white organization, and what we're interested in is how can PAM as an organization, both not just in terms of its faculty members, but also in terms of its conferees, and also in terms of the people to whom it is listening, in terms of the communities and congregations it would like to be able to be in conversation with, in partnership with. The other, one of the things that Kelly has done so beautifully for us is to help the organization reach out and connect with other entities in the PCUSA, and so that our conversation partners within the church, our conversation partners in the music that we sing and in the liturgy we plan, our conversation partners in the communities and the churches that we are trying to assist and we are trying to learn from. It's a matter not only of saying, here's what we've, it's not only a matter of our voice saying, here's what we have to do for you. It's us as an organization being willing to listen and say, who have we not listened to before? Who have we not invited before? Whose voices? I told Kelly yesterday, I heard a great phrase on our Austin public radio station earlier this week, on a project that was similar to some conversations the board has had, and the phrase was amplifying other voices or something like that. And I thought, what a great phrase for some of the initiatives that we're hoping to do, to amplify and hear other voices than just the primarily white voices that maybe we have concentrated on a little too exclusively.
To add to that, thank you, Eric. The one, how do I say this? We tend to, and we've learned this with models of mission, that the model of mission used to be, you go help people, right? We go out and we go help. And that's not really mission. Mission is coming with your hands open and saying, what do you need? Not what do I think you need, what do you need? And we have to do that in all that we do. That PAM is here to hear the needs of the membership. And I think we're doing that, and we're living into that a little more. The conversations I've had with Jewel McRae and Amy Mendez and Rochelle Hunter from Racial Equity and Women's Intercultural Ministries are hard conversations, but are necessary conversations for us to understand where we are as an organization and how we move forward. I think we've said the planning teams do a great job of finding leadership and finding diverse leadership. We have to learn how and why people of color want to or do not want to be at PAM events, and meet folks where they are and make sure that we are serving all of the denomination, and we're working on it.
We have a question here. It is, have all of the board members made a pledge?
Yes. Yes, all board members, and you know that our membership our board makeup changes every year, and so yes, that is something we all fervently believe, that if you're going to ask anyone to give, then you need to give first. So yes, great question. Thank you.
Here's a question. Can you talk more about the events planned for the new regions? Has the board allotted money for the effective execution? And how, especially in large geographic areas, are they being developed to reach non-Presbyterian congregations?
Great question. Oh, I need to keep that question up. Let me make sure I can read this. Okay. We are developing regions in I don't want to say in partnership, but we are modeling APSE's regions with the idea of again, collaboration. And so the regions are roughly based along the Synod guideline, or the Synod boundaries. And for example, the one that we're working on right now is a pilot region. It's the South Central region. That's Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And we've written out sort of some guidelines, a purpose, and we've brought it to this pilot team, and we've broken it down a little more. What do they need? Well, I think a lot of times we go to sort of like programming. What workshop do we need? We're working on that. But the other thing is, what about a community? What are the community needs, and how do we build that community with that region? And it's not always going to be a workshop. It might be a cohort. It might be a Zoom. Right now, it's going to be a Zoom call. But creating spaces to create community, and that is so important to us to make sure that we foster and grant that space. So events planned, nothing just yet. We talked about the idea of piloting 3 regions this year, but I think let's get one off the ground, and then we'll slowly work to the other 2. Has the board allotted money for their effective execution? The answer is we are working toward taking part of that membership fee, allotting a certain amount from the membership fee, and giving that to the regions every year as seed money. And they use that money to help get the funding, or lift the workshops or any event that they choose off the ground. They will likely charge some sort of event fee as well, but that's our way of supporting. The other thing I want to make sure I point out with these regions is that we realize that a lot of these regions, and a lot of your job isn't to maintain websites and create event registrations. As Kim Long told me, I am not an event coordinator, and that's not her gift. And so we want to make sure that we are providing support from our office to make that happen. We want to make sure that there is a web page for every region, that it's succinct, that communications, we can help you do that. We can send the email out to the regions. We can manage the event registration. That's what we have TravelLink for. So let's utilize the tools that we have in the office to support you to create community. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and there's one more question here. Is there a loose time frame for setting up the regional chapters? Is it next year or next 5 years?
Great question. We want to get this one off the ground, and it seems to be moving quicker. I think there's excitement underneath that, and I think that's great. I think once we get that off the ground and we're able to really sort of hone in on guidelines, then we'll start setting them all up. And as quickly as Andrew and I can handle the pace with which you guys set it up. But we're excited, and we want to make sure that we're there for you and can get this going, because I don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. And so we want to do it as quickly but as smartly as possible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why we realize in having the conversations about regions to sort of bite off the whole cookie with all 12 at one time. What we want to avoid above all is our zeal getting ahead of our ability, and so to start with the pilot project and let the conversations that are already. I mean, we were just on a conversation earlier this week with this. You heard Beth Judd in the video a little while ago talking about the germinating of the South Central. And we had a meeting, I think it was on Monday this week, Monday or Tuesday. It was a great conversation, wonderful energy, and those folks are already thinking, who else can we pull in? Can we pull in? What are the next stages that we can plan? So that already has got some wonderful energy, and our feeling is that to focus. To have a great focus on that pilot project region lets us actually get the others going maybe more quickly than if we had tried to do all 12 at once, and we're tending to all 12, whatever our number is, all of them at once, and trying to manage more that was manageable at one time. And I'll just echo what Kelly said. I think one of the exciting things to me, even in that conversation this past week and in the board's conversation about what the regions would look like, is the sort of developing the identity of the regions as a multifaceted thing. So it's not merely, here's a section of the country somewhere in which we will do one hymn festival a year, which may well happen. But it's also, as Kelly said, it's conversation partners and a network and resourcing and introducing one another, and having multiple ways of being together, especially these days. So for these to be, for these to have multiple layers of how they may work and enable people to be together, just feels really rich and cheering.
Eric, here's a question. If there are any specific needs requests for what could happen at the regional level, please let Kelly know.
I'm sorry.
I guess that's just a comment, excuse me.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But I do have another question. How can churches be involved in this campaign?
Kelly, do you want to, we invite pledge and contribution from both individual PAM members and from churches, and Kelly just told us, I think a minute ago, about a church's pledge that bumped up our amount even for what's already listed on the website. Is that right? That was a church.
Yes, that was a church contribution. Sorry, my Wi-Fi 20 problems, backed out. Yes, churches, we are seeking church participation and church support. We have got churches who've made pledges. We've also had churches who have made us aware of grant opportunities, and we can submit grant requests to utilize funds to seek assistance in helping us achieve some of the goals that we've set for the anniversary campaign. So scholarships for, as I mentioned with St. Philip's, they gave us a scholarship to help us provide housing and travel stipends and registrations to minorities. And those are sort of the ways that churches can be supportive to us. So if you know of opportunities, please let me know.
We appreciate your interest in the campaign. And if you have any more questions, please reach out to one of us. As you can see, PAM has a very bright future, but we can't do it without you. That is why I would like to invite you to join me in making a financial commitment to PAM. You should have received the brochure for the 50th anniversary campaign. I encourage you to review it for more specific information. As a follow-up to this webinar today, you will receive a link to the 50th anniversary page where there will be a pledge card. I invite you to prayerfully consider how God is calling you to support PAM. Our goal is to raise $1 million as part of this campaign, and we cannot do it without your help. Thank you for taking the time today to hear about PAM and all of the exciting things that are going on. And thank you in advance for your support.
Please join me in prayer. The Lord be with you. Creator God, thank you for the ways that PAM has helped to glorify you for the last 50 years. Thank you for all the time, talents, and treasures that so many saints have given to PAM over the years. With thankful hearts and voices raised, we now look towards the next 50 years, striving to continue to glorify you. We have all been blessed in different ways by you. Help us to share our blessings in order to further your mission and ministry. In Jesus the Christ we pray. Amen. We will close this webinar with a video that PAM created when we launched this campaign in 2019. Thank you for attending today's webinar.
Since 1956, people have gathered for the worship and music conferences at Montreat. And in 1970, PAM was born. Through this campaign, we can help sustain PAM as it provides support to musicians, pastors, and lay members who value meaningful worship, music of the highest quality, and transformative arts that nurture and shape communities of faith.
It would be hard to overstate the ways PAM has formed me as a church musician. Some of that is professional formation, song leading, ways of doing liturgy, repertory and ideas and songs and techniques. But in a larger and deeper sense, it is spiritual formation that absorbs that professional formation.
I have gleaned so much knowledge from attending the PAM worship and music conferences for over 40 years in church music ministry. As a young musician, I learned from watching and interacting with some of the finest musicians and church leaders in the world. I cannot imagine my career without this fine organization.
PAM's campaign goal is to raise $1 million. At least half of the funds raised will be invested to ensure PAM's financial future and ongoing work.
The future of PAM is important to develop churches across the country and across the world.
I want to support the PAM Anniversary Campaign because I hope that PAM will continue to touch and reach church professionals in both small and large churches for years to come.
It gives people permission to experience something that they may be too timid to try out at home.
PAM equips us as musicians for the tasks we have to do, but even more importantly, I think PAM deepens our sense of vocation.
PAM upholds the highest form of liturgy, of music, the arts in all forms, visual arts as well. And through all these different mediums, God is able to reach further into the hearts of all of us.
I think as we, again, are in the middle of an era of a change in church, PAM might be even more important than ever.
I hope that we will continue to be delighted by imagination and work with energy and most of all with love.